Hi everybody, Dr. Debunk. This is part 9, 8? I should have checked. It doesn't matter. This is going to be the last one. Um, these videos aren't super organized. I'm doing this all out of my head from memory, um, uh, just to help people. The point of everything was really to get to the last video where I told you about long haul syndromes. And now I just want to kind of do a summary in an overview and preparing for the future. So let's do a little medicine. Let me teach you. So, what is the purpose? I'm going to do two. So I'm going to do this one and talk plainly. And this is a general science. This has nothing to do with the Martian per se. This is just science. So, as a review of history, vaccines were invented to try to prevent serious illness. And we know this from smallpox and polio, and you can read all the history of it. I'm summarizing it, but the point was polio and smallpox could cause serious life-ending complications that would manifest much later in life, but also could make people very seriously ill. And so the whole move in medicine to create vaccines for those two starting out was to prevent serious illness. And every doctor was taught that. But then they started changing the movie. And I remember in 88, 89, I don't know, they had retooled the flu vaccine. And they started changing the definition. And so now today, every single doctor, every single medical student, unless doctors think it through, will tell you that the purpose of a vaccine is to prevent the illness altogether. But debunk, wrong. You can't do that. It took a lot more than just the vaccines to eradicate polio and smallpox. But they did it, and that wasn't a bad thing at all. But as I said, even if polio and smallpox came back, the virus would be so diluted, that normal healthy people wouldn't even need the vaccine. And so that's the first point. The real medical definition of vaccines is to prevent serious illness. You're hoping that you can vaccinate someone who's at high risk from, say, dying from the flu, which is the best example. And as I think I mentioned, in 1988 or so, when they had retooled the flu vaccine, for the next 8 to 10 years, the written indication on the CDC, and you can go, you probably can't find it anymore, they get rid of all that stuff, but I remember we only gave the flu vaccine to people over 65 with emphysema, who were at serious risk to be getting pneumonia from the flu, and that would kill them. So the idea is the vaccine would boost their immunity, and they wouldn't get flu pneumonia. But even that person, if they got flu upper respiratory, is not going to die. But if they got flu pneumonia, it could kill them. So if the vaccine could prevent them from getting pneumonia, then it worked. And by and large, it did. It seemed to work. I've never really looked hard at the data. I'm suspicious now that it worked that well. But, that's what we did. And normal, healthy people, nobody got the flu vaccine. And then they magically just started changing the rules. And there was no science at all to support it, as is today. There is no science to support giving healthy people the flu vaccine. What's the point? If you get the flu, are you going to die? No. If it's a bad year, you'll get sick for 10 days to 2 weeks. But now your immunity is boosted. See, the problem with vaccines is they only give you 1/3, 1/4, 1/5 the immunity of getting the virus. So who cares if you get measles, mumps, rubella, hepatitis A or B, the flu? Healthy people don't die. And again, I'm only talking about normal, healthy people. Healthy people don't die from any of these infections. So we are supposed to see Mother Nature, and I don't care what you believe about Mother Nature, whether God, aliens, or evolution created Mother Nature and humans. Where we came from is irrelevant. Nature, the nature of our existence is defined And mammals are supposed to get upper respiratory infections over and over and over and over again in their life until you're finally immune from that particular strain of virus, and then you're fine. And then you don't get any more. People over 40 to healthy might get a bad flu once in their life after that, once or twice. That's it. Case in point, I practiced 39 years. For 39 years, people hacking my face in little rooms. You know how many times I've got a bad flu? Once. In 1993, my wife and I slobbered around the house for a couple days. We were sick for 8. It was a bad flu season. And I've never got it again. And people are hacking billions of germs right down my throat. Why don't I get the flu every year? I don't get anything. Because I have so much immunity, like healthy doctors do, because people do this to us endlessly. There aren't any flu variations that are strong enough to do anything to me. And that's the normal course of humans. But we are wrecking it with what we're doing with vaccines. Now, doctors can disagree with that, but the evidence speaks for itself, you know. So to continue finally with that, here's how it's supposed to work. You know, you get chickenpox as a kid, but that's not happening as much now because they're giving the vaccine. They're giving chickenpox vaccines. And you can say, well, that's great, they don't get chickenpox. But wait a second. If you don't get chickenpox from the vaccine, you'll have to get booster shots, but you're really only getting 1/4 the immunity anyway. So now what happens if you get chickenpox anyway, because you get a high enough exposure to overcome your crappy immunity from the vaccine? What happens? Well, now at 60, you get bad shingles, really bad shingles. And shingles has gotten way worse. The more we vaccinate, the worse it gets. Why is that? Because here's normal human life. You're 7, you get chickenpox. And your immunity is strong, but at 17, 10 years later, it's getting weak. Well, now you're around your little cousin who is sick with chickenpox, maybe just starting. You don't really know it's chickenpox. And you get re-exposed. Not enough to make you sick, but it boosts your immunity. And that's how all upper respiratory things work. We get low-grade exposures because the younger people below us are still getting sick from these viruses, and it reboosts our immunity. That's the natural vaccine. That's what we're all supposed to do. That's why I never got sick from the Martian. You know, I treated 300 people in my office, never after the first year wore a mask. How did I not get infected? Now that's another story because I did upper airway sterilization literally after every patient, and that gave me exposure but not enough to get sick. And I'll talk about that in the next one. But this is the natural course of humans and viruses and vaccines. And so the moral of this video is, and we'll see if they don't like this, even though it has nothing to do with the Martian, is that look, I see no scientific evidence to support the fact that healthy people should be getting any vaccines. Because why? It doesn't matter if your kids get measles, mumps, rubella, hepatitis A, hepatitis B. Hepatitis B is weak. In the 39 years I've been a doctor, hepatitis B now is weak. We don't admit anybody anymore for hepatitis B. But the first 10 years as a doctor, I would admit people. Because you could get sick enough from it. But the virus now has weakened itself to the point where it's like hepatitis A of old. So it's a joke. You'll get the stomach flu if you get hepatitis A or B. So it doesn't matter if you get cold or flu viruses. You're supposed to get them. That builds strong people. We are making weak children by doing this. And there is no other conclusion you can come to. But as soon as you redefine the purpose of a vaccine, well, then everything changes. Because they're saying the purpose is to eradicate these infections. But should we be eradicating them? Of course not. And so we're going to see a whole generation of kids now, when they get older, be getting terrible shingles. I mean bad. Because they don't have the natural immunity from being re-exposed to chickenpox over and over again and building this strong base that occurs over the decades of our life. So this video is about the correct use of vaccines, you know. And again, if you're chronically ill, fighting cancer, whatever, that's a whole nother can of worms that I'm not going to get into. Someday I'll do it on my website, but not here. And so that's it. I'm Dr. Debunk. And the next part will be well, the next part. I'm Dr. Debunk. Thanks for watching.